The first time I noticed her, really noticed her, she was standing at the counter of the coffee shop below our building, asking the barista if they could make her drink less sweet. Not rude. Not fussy. Just tired, like sugar was one more thing she didn't have the patience for that morning. I was halfway through my usual black coffee, nothing else, when she turned, and her eyes brushed past mine. Just a glance. A neighbor's recognition. We'd passed each other before in the hallway, her arms full of grocery bags, my headphones in, a nod exchanged. That day, though, I saw something else, her shoulders set like she was carrying more than the bags. "Morning," I'd said when she walked past my table. She gave the kind of smile people save for strangers they see too often to ignore but not enough to know. Quick, polite. Then she sat a few tables over, phone in hand, screen lighting her face in the soft gray of late morning. I tried not to stare and failed. It wasn't attraction in the usual way. Not at first. It was something quieter, like noticing the way someone holds a mug with both hands when it's too hot, or the way they take a slow breath before answering a text. I caught myself folding the paper napkin in front of me into smaller and smaller squares, glancing up every time she shifted in her chair. "Too sweet," she murmured after her first sip, almost to herself. I laughed, low and unplanned. "Should have ordered mine. Tastes like cardboard." Her head tilted. A smirk then. "That's the point of coffee, isn't it? Punishment?" And just like that, I felt the hook set. We traded a few lines, about caffeine, about how the weather couldn't decide between spring or winter. She asked if I was working that day. I almost said, no, just to keep her talking, but honesty got the better of me. I was late already, but for some reason, I stayed an extra 5 minutes, watching her scroll absent-mindedly through her phone. When I left, she said, "See you around." Like it was nothing. Like it didn't matter. But I replayed it all afternoon. The half-smile, the way she tapped her thumb against the mug while listening, the soft rasp in her voice like she didn't sleep enough. That night, I almost texted a friend about it, but stopped. What was there to say? I talked to the neighbor at the coffee shop. She made me laugh about bitter coffee. It sounded ridiculous. So I wrote the message, stared at it, then deleted it. Instead, I found myself listening through the walls when I got home, the faint shuffle of her TV, the click of her door lock. Ordinary sounds, but they carried. The next morning, I went down earlier than usual, telling myself I needed the caffeine before class. She was already there, hair tied back loosely, a book open this time. The barista slid her order across the counter before she even asked. "You're a regular," I said. "So are you," she answered, not looking up from the page. But then, after a pause, her eyes flicked up, quick, measuring. And she smiled, softer than yesterday. I sat near her again. Close enough to hear the turning of her pages. Far enough to pretend I wasn't waiting for her to say something more. She didn't. Still, when she stood to leave, she hesitated just a second too long. Enough for me to notice. Enough for me to wonder if maybe she had something unsent too. By the time she was gone, my coffee was cold. That night, a soft ping lit my phone. Unknown number. "If you're up early tomorrow, maybe we'll run into each other again." The next morning, I found myself standing in the coffee shop doorway earlier than usual, pulse sharp in my neck. She was already there, hair damp like she hadn't dried it fully, sweater sleeves pushed up to her elbows. A quiet kind of beautiful, the kind you only notice when you're not supposed to. I ordered, then hesitated. She glanced up from her cup and gave me the faintest nod, like an invitation, but also like nothing at all. I sat across from her. "You texted me," I said, careful not to sound like I'd been waiting. Her lips curved. "You make it sound like a crime. Isn't it?" I tried to make it a joke, but the truth ran under it. She didn't answer right away. Just sipped, then set her mug down. Her fingers stayed around it longer than they needed to. "I wasn't sure I should," she said finally. "But I don't know. It's nice talking to someone without." She trailed off, her eyes flicking toward the window, where the street buzzed with people carrying their mornings forward. Without expectations. I wanted to ask what expectations had worn her down. Instead, I folded my napkin again and again, pressing the creases too sharply. I don't get that much, I admitted. People usually assume things. Or I guess I let them. She tilted her head, studying me, like she was weighing whether to ask more. Then, you remind me of my daughter's friends. Not in a bad way. Just, she broke off, shaking her head. You're too young for coffee that bitter. Her laugh was light, but my chest tightened. There it was, the line, drawn so casually in the air between us. Her daughter, her age, my youth. I like the punishment, I said. She smirked, but her gaze lingered. Longer than polite. Long enough that I felt it somewhere I shouldn't. We fell into a rhythm over the next week. Not every morning, but enough. Sometimes she brought tea instead of coffee, sliding the second cup across the table without comment. Sometimes I helped her carry grocery bags upstairs, her thanks quiet but weighted. Sometimes we just sat in the lobby when the elevator broke again, side by side, saying little. It wasn't what we said. It was the silences. The way she exhaled more softly when I was near. The way I caught myself imagining her laugh in the quiet of my apartment. At night the doubts settled in. She's older. She has a daughter. She probably knows better. But then the morning would come, and I'd catch her eyes across a crowded room, and all the rules I'd written for myself would blur. One evening, we passed in the hallway. She was juggling keys and a bag of laundry. I reached for the basket without thinking. Our fingers brushed, barely, but enough. Thank you, she said, voice softer than I'd ever heard it. And for reasons I can't explain, that moment burned into me more than anything she'd said all week. I don't know why it stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. It was raining the morning I saw her again. Not a heavy storm, just the kind of drizzle that makes the air smell like wet concrete and leaves. The coffee shop was packed, people shaking off umbrellas, claiming every seat. She sat by the window, alone, jacket damp at the shoulders. I hesitated. There were no empty tables except the one across from her. She looked up as if she'd been expecting me. Or maybe that was just my wish, twisting the ordinary. Crowded today, I said, sliding into the seat before I lost my nerve. Her smile was quick, tired. Guess we'll have to share. We fell into the easy rhythm again, quiet comments, soft pauses. But something felt sharper under the surface. She kept glancing toward the door, like she was waiting for someone else. Her fingers tapped lightly against her mug, then stilled. You're quieter than usual, I said. She shrugged. Long week. Then, after a beat too long. And I shouldn't be here, maybe. I tried to laugh it off. What do you mean? Her eyes met mine, steady, searching. You're young. You should be. I don't know. Out with friends. Not wasting mornings on coffee with your neighbor. The words stung more than they should have. I fiddled with the sleeve of my cup, peeling back the cardboard edge until it bent. I don't think it's wasting, I muttered. She didn't answer. Just looked out the window, rain sliding down the glass, her reflection fractured in the streaks. That silence stretched until the door opened and broke it. A voice, familiar. Hey, man! I turned. It was a classmate, someone I only half knew, grinning like we'd just bumped into each other at a party instead of a crowded cafe. His eyes flicked from me to her. A pause. Then that grin softened into something more curious. This your mom's friend? He asked, too casually. Before I could answer, she stood. Collected her bag, her book, her coat in one smooth motion. Nice to see you, she said to me, voice polite, distant. And then she was gone, just like that. The classmate gave me a look I couldn't read, then wandered off to the counter. I sat there with her empty chair in front of me, the imprint of her mug ring still on the table. That evening, in the hallway, I heard her door click shut just as mine opened. I thought about knocking. Thought about saying something. Instead, I stood there with the weight of it pressing in, the thin wall between us feeling thicker than ever. Days passed before we crossed paths again. Laundry room, humming machines, the smell of detergent hanging heavy. She was folding clothes, precise, almost mechanical. "You left fast the other day," I said, careful, almost whispering over the noise. Her hands paused on a towel. "It felt complicated." I nodded, though I didn't fully understand. Or maybe I did, and just didn't want to. The hum of the dryers filled the space. I stepped closer, meaning only to take the basket she was struggling with. Our hands brushed again, just skin, nothing more. But this time, neither of us pulled back right away. Her breath caught, just faintly. Mine matched it. For a second, one suspended, impossible second, I thought she might close the distance between us. But she turned, setting the basket down firmly. "Thank you," she said without looking up. And the line between us, already blurred, stayed unbroken. For now. It was late afternoon when I found her outside, sitting on the low stone wall near the entrance of the building. The sun was already dipping, the sky fading into that washed-out blue that comes right before dusk. She had a thermos balanced on her knee, hands wrapped around it like she needed the warmth more than the tea inside. I almost kept walking. Almost nodded, went upstairs, let the moment pass. But she looked up, like she'd felt me there before she saw me, and I stopped. "Long day?" I asked. Her smile barely lifted. "They all are." I sat beside her, not too close. The wall was cool under my palms. For a while, we didn't say anything. Just the sound of cars in the distance, a dog barking faintly down the street. Then, without looking at me, she said, "You know, it's not fair." "What isn't?" She drew in a breath, let it out slow. "This. Us sitting here. Me, letting it happen." I frowned. "Letting what happen?" Finally, her eyes turned to mine. A long, steady look, like she'd been holding it back for weeks. "You don't know what you want." "Not really." "And She broke off, shook her head. "I should know better." The words hit sharper than she meant, maybe. I picked at the edge of the stone with my thumb, searching for something to say. "I know what I don't want," I said. My voice came out rougher than I intended. "I don't want to pretend this doesn't matter." Her laugh was soft, but not amused. "It shouldn't matter. That's the problem." We sat there in the thinning light, silence stretching between us. My chest tightened with all the things I didn't know how to say, how I noticed the way she smoothed her sleeve when she was nervous, how I listened for her footsteps in the hallway, how being near her felt steadier than anything else in my life. "You remind me," she said suddenly, voice almost breaking, "of what it was like, before everything got heavy. When someone could just look at me and not see the mess I've made of things." Her hand tightened around the thermos. I wanted to reach for it for her. I didn't. "You're not a mess," I said quietly. She shook her head, eyes closing for a second too long. "You don't know me well enough to believe that." The air felt fragile, like one wrong word could shatter it. "I'd like to," I whispered. Her breath caught, a sound so faint I almost doubted it. She turned then, finally, and the distance between us felt like it dissolved in that single look. Her eyes held mine, and there was no polite smile, no deflection, just raw, unguarded truth. She leaned back slightly, like she was steadying herself against something too strong. The thermos slipped a little in her grip. I reached instinctively, hand brushing hers as I steadied it. Neither of us moved away. Her lips parted, like she was about to say something she couldn't take back. And then she didn't. We sat there, caught between everything said and unsaid. Her gaze held mine. And in the silence, the question lingered, unspoken, heavy, impossible. What are we doing? The next morning, I went down early, half hoping, half expecting to see her already there with her tea. The cafe was nearly empty. Just a couple of students hunched over laptops, the hiss of the espresso machine. No sign of her. I told myself it didn't matter. Ordered my coffee, sat at our usual table anyway. The chair across from me stayed empty, its absence louder than any conversation could have been. For 3 days, it was the same. No coffee shop. No chance meetings in the hallway. Her door stayed shut when I passed, blinds drawn against the afternoon light. I caught myself listening harder at night. No muffled TV through the wall, no kettle whistle, but silence. By the 4th day, I started rehearsing what I'd say if I knocked. "You okay? I haven't seen you. Want to talk?" Every version felt too much, or not enough. That evening, carrying out the trash, I saw her at the far end of the lot. She was leaning against a car, phone pressed to her ear, head tilted down. She didn't see me. But I heard her voice, faint and strained. I know. She's staying with me for now." "Yes, I'll handle it." "No, don't start this again." Her shoulders slumped, her free hand rubbing her temple. A long pause. Then softer. "I can't keep fixing everything for everyone." Something in my chest tightened. I wanted to walk over, say something, anything, but the tone in her voice stopped me. Tired. Raw. Not for me. I slipped back inside before she could notice. Later, the laundry room light glowed under the door. I pushed it open. She was there, folding sheets, hair loose around her face. She looked up. For a second, I thought she might smile. She didn't. "Hey," I said. "Hey." Her voice was polite, distant, like the first time we met. "You've been..." I stopped. Too much weight in the word gone. "Busy?" She nodded. "My daughter's back. Just for a while." I blinked slow, trying to keep my face still. That was the piece she hadn't said before. The missing thread. Suddenly the walls between us felt thicker, more solid than ever. "That's good," I said finally, though it came out thin. She folded another sheet, her hands moving too precisely, like she needed the task to keep steady. "It changes things." I wanted to ask how. For who? Instead, I just nodded, clutching the edge of my basket like it could anchor me. We worked in silence. The dryers hummed. The air smelled of detergent and distance. When I left, I drafted a message as I climbed the stairs. "I miss our mornings. Can we talk?" I stared at the words, thumb hovering. Then I erased them. Back in my apartment, I set my phone on the counter, screen blank. The wall between us felt impossibly quiet. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused. Like life forgot to finish the sentence. It was late when I saw her again. Not morning coffee, not passing in the hallway. Just evening, the kind where the air hangs heavy and every sound in the building carries. I was heading upstairs with groceries when I noticed her door cracked open. She was standing in the kitchen, lights low, a glass of water in her hand. She didn't see me at first. She looked tired, her shoulders sinking against the counter like the day had finally won. I hesitated, then tapped lightly on the frame. "Hey!" Her head lifted. For a second, I thought she might close the door. Instead, she exhaled, a faint curve of relief in her mouth. "Come in." I stepped inside. The space was warmer than mine, softer light, books stacked on the table, a half-folded blanket draped over a chair. Home in a way mine wasn't. "You okay?" I asked. She set the glass down. "She's asleep. My daughter. I didn't want you to find out like that." I nodded, though the knot in my chest stayed. "I get it." "No," she said quietly. "You don't." She's grown, but she still looks at me like I should have all the answers. And I don't. I barely hold my own life together. The honesty hit harder than I expected. I leaned against the wall, grocery bag still in my hand, shifting the weight from arm to arm. "You don't have to," I said. Her laugh was thin, tired. "Easy for you to say. You're still starting. I'm supposed to be finished." "Finished with what?" Her eyes found mine, sharp but fragile. "With waiting for someone to see me." I didn't know what to do with the ache that rose up at that. My throat felt tight, words sticking. I wanted to tell her she'd been seen all along, every morning, every silence, Every look that lasted too long. But saying it out loud felt like stepping off a cliff. I see you, I whispered finally. She froze. The air shifted. My own voice sounded too bare, like I'd torn something open. Her eyes softened, but her hands tightened on the counter. And what do we do with that? I swallowed. I don't know. But I don't want to pretend anymore. The quiet stretched. Only the hum of the fridge, the faint creak of the floor under us. She stepped closer slowly, like testing whether the ground would hold. Her hand brushed mine barely there, then settled against it. Small, human, steady. We stood like that, not rushing, not crossing every line, just holding the moment. Her gaze lifted, meeting mine. A long pause. Then a soft, almost imperceptible nod. Okay, she said. And it was enough. Mornings found their rhythm again, though not quite the same as before. Sometimes it was tea for her, black coffee for me. Sometimes it was just a quiet nod in the lobby as we left at the same time, a shared look that said I know you're there. Her daughter eventually left, suitcase trailing behind her. I helped carry it down to the curb. She thanked me, polite the way mothers do when their children's friends lend a hand. But when the car pulled away, she didn't go back inside right away. We stood on the bench outside, the same stone one where we'd once let the silence do all the talking. It's quieter again, she said. Quieter can be good, I answered. Her smile held. Not wide, not dramatic. Just there, steady. Days turned into weeks. We didn't name what we were. We didn't need to. I'd find her at 8:47 a.m., book in hand, mug steaming. Sometimes she'd bring me tea just to see if I'd flinch. I always did. Sometimes I'd push a black coffee her way and say, "Punishment," just to make her roll her eyes. There were no confessions, no sweeping gestures. Just small things. Carrying her groceries without being asked. Her slipping a folded napkin toward me when my hands wouldn't stay still. A glance that lasted a second longer than it should, but not long enough to undo us. In the laundry room one evening, she leaned against the humming dryer, arms crossed, watching me wrestle with a stubborn fitted sheet. "You're terrible at this," she said. "Maybe I like being terrible at something," I replied. Her laugh was quiet, tired, but real. "You don't have to try so hard, you know." And I didn't. That was the point. We never crossed the lines in a way anyone else would notice. To others, we were just neighbors. To me, she was the pause between sentences, the moment that steadied everything. To her, well, I don't know. Maybe I was the reminder she still deserved mornings that weren't heavy. Months later, I'd still find myself on that same bench outside, watching her sip from her thermos, steam curling in the cool air. Sometimes we'd talk. Sometimes we wouldn't. Either way, it felt like enough. Looking back, I don't remember the exact words we said that first morning. What I remember is the way she glanced at me over a too-sweet cup of coffee, the way it made the day feel lighter than it should have. And I think, no, I know, that's why it stayed. Not because it was loud, but because it was ours. Sparkles, did this story stay with you? What kind of quiet, real love stories do you want to hear next?